Hello everybody, the iLord Root here, and welcome to this first episode of Kerbal Space Program Flight for Survival. So this is my .24 career mode series. I definitely want to revisit this series, or start a new series rather, under the new game, because it adds a lot. And I've decided that stock is probably not where we're going to stay at. We're probably going to, I've added in a few more mods like Ferrum Aerospace Program, but other than that, I've also imposed a rule on myself, and that rule just happens to be that if we get to orange reputation, which is, I think, somewhere around negative 50 or so, between negative 50 and negative 100. Actually, that's scaled up by 10. It's negative 500 to negative 1000. Then this space program will end because I think that the Kerbals are actually quite warlike, and that they're doing the space program just to keep themselves alive, because if they don't, then they will probably end up annihilating themselves. So we gotta find ourselves a flag real quick. And I think maybe, since this is all about Kerbin, and about maintaining Kerbal life, we'll select the Kerbin flag to signify their unity. So, let's begin. Now, I do want to point out that we may have issues with crashing, but that'll be okay for now. We'll use TAC life support so that we can't just keep Kerbals up in space. And we'll have, it looks like, that will be about 2 hours without oxygen and electricity. So, they can survive a long time without food, just like most people can. But we don't really want it to go too far. I mean, we'll just leave it at that. And so we'll do that. We'll allow respawn. And then, we'll go to far real quick and manipulate that as well. And that'll help us out a lot. I don't really know how to tweak deadly reentry yet. But these, we'll leave them at the default values and see if maybe they're a little bit too difficult. I don't think they will be, but that'll be fine. One thing we want to do as well is I'm going to open up the debug menu real quick. Now, you might say, wait a minute, you're cheating already. Well, no, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to gameplay tweaks, and I'm going to remove this allow revert to launch and revert to editor, and we'll also turn off quick loading and quick saving. So we'll do that, and I think that'll be just fine for us. Hopefully it'll keep that going, and then we'll just have to see with deadly reentry. So that's pretty much it. The first thing we want to do is grab our first contracts. Now, I've learned since I've played a bit that stacking contracts is the best way to go. And we're going to take a little bit slower of a pace because we could get into orbit quite easily. But we really don't want to do that. We want to essentially work our way up because we'll get more reputation there. So let's go ahead. We will get these guys going real quick. I'm just going to have a capsule here with an SRB. We're going to try and hit that 5,000 mark. We'll want to parachute, of course, and this time I'm going to correct my staging. Now, we don't want to overdo this. I believe we will probably hit this with half thrust, or they're about half thrust, and a quarter fuel. Maybe FAR will help us here. So we become inefficient at Mach 1. I have no idea where max Q is at here. And same deal here. I don't really understand all of these numbers, to tell you the truth. I'm not a plane person. Let's calculate the stability derivatives. We've actually got a pretty good one here. Bad pitch up. That is fine for the most part. We've got bad pitch control, I believe. But I don't really know what else is going on here. So maybe I should just read into that a little bit more, because I don't really know what I'm doing quite yet. But hey, that's half the fun. So we'll call this first shot, and we'll see if maybe this thing wants to crash. Now, we're going in without resources, which is ordinarily a bad thing, but we can keep the mission going for about 2 hours or so before it really becomes an issue. And so what we'll do is we will take ourselves a crew report here, and we'll step out and... oh, we have food and water already. That's interesting. We'll take this data and we'll grab ourselves an EVA report that'll be flying over Kerbin. So let's bring up our resources and hope that we get to a reasonable apoapsis, because we're not going to be able to slow it down. Incidentally, I have not really done any testing with Ferrum Aerospace and this particular model. This was done before I installed Ferrum Aerospace, so we might be a little bit more efficient. And this is actually bad news. We're already supersonic, which is not quite what I was hoping for. Deadly re-entry may not like that too much. I'm going to slow us down a bit. Hopefully we'll get some drag and we will not have aerodynamic failure here. And we'll get a crew report while we're up here. Now, a lot of people tend to move away from the launch pad. I actually believe that is suboptimal, because the trouble with moving away from the launch pad is that we now have this issue that we're going to have to more or less, be as close to the launch pad as possible so that we get our deal going on. We're way higher than I wanted to be. I way overdid that. But we did get science from that, and we'll get more science still. Okay, what? Oh, I have to hit the trash can in order to do that. So this is an incredibly efficient rocket, and we may be able to get something out of it. Unfortunately, you sort of have to have the contract going to do this. And I really needed about half the fuel because one of the things that ferrum does is it makes things a whole lot more efficient. I mean, this is probably enough to get us out of the atmosphere. We're already in high um oh, there we go. What do we have here for data? Okay, we're not high enough to be in the atmosphere or to be in high atmospheric flight yet. That's okay. Normally that rocket would have been good enough for us, but because there's more atmospheric efficiency, because the atmosphere does tend to, you know, have a much steeper gradient, it appears. It's going to affect how we do gravity turns. We don't really want to go to 10K anymore on our gravity turn unless we want a really high orbit. That also means that we're going to have a couple of issues here as well with maybe, with deadly reentry. Now, deadly reentry has not reared its ugly head yet, and maybe I've just simply not enabled it properly because it is installed. And in fact, if I wanted to cheat a little bit, I could, in fact, go through and use the decouplers for deadly reentry, and then we'll get ourselves an almost perfect, touchdown. Such as it is, I'm not even sure if there's enough drag here to really support that SRB. That would be nice, but I don't think it's doable. But we're going to be here on the right next to the VAB. You can see that the planet's rotated underneath us, and we're definitely going to lose that SRB. There's no question about it. I guess we're just going to have to deal with that. However, early science really isn't that bad of a deal. I mean, we have at least landed, and that is going to be something good for us. Now, we're going to go out on an EVA, and we'll just walk around a bit. I really should have taken my EVA report and a surface sample along with that. I'm thinking I'll hit up the launch pad because we do have plenty of room here. When I first played this, it turned out that these command pods did not, for some reason or another, have really anything in the way of, we'll just store those experiments. There we go. I didn't really have anything in the way of resources that we could use. And we get to walk all the way over here. And really, I guess I should be doing this with the buggy, but we can't afford the buggy right now. Let's take a look in the interim at our resources, because we do have about 42k. That's that is a moderate amount. That means we're going to be able to do a ton of testing. But we'll go ahead and we'll get over to this launch pad over here. And just to prevent having to walk back, I will recover the vessel separately, as I may need to anyhow. You'll notice too, when I get this thing up and going, that it'll turn out that we'll have ribbons available through Final Frontier. I thought it was a nice touch on the game, and people really seem to like it. So that's going to be what we're doing. Really, I guess I should tweak on the next mission my burn time. How are we doing on resources? Our resource consumption is probably not too bad. Yeah, I mean, we got 6 hours left, and I'm taking nowhere near 6 hours. But there's a lot of science that we can gain here, and the hope is that when we recover this, that we will now be able to easily take care of this. And hopefully it won't crash. Otherwise, I guess I need to use texture reduction. If it does, I will just splice in the appropriate amount of video. And we will get ourselves a fair amount of reputation, I think. While we're here, I might as well celebrate by taking science. So take a surface sample and take an EVA report. And now let's hit the magic button and see if that crashes KSP. And Jebediah Kerman, as you can see, has plenty of missions available. Now, we have lots of things we can recover, but you'll see we recovered a decent amount of finds. I'm not entirely sure what I recovered there, but recovered something. We'll go back to our station here and we will recover this guy and get the science back from it. We now have 44 science to play around with, which will help us quite a bit. So let's spend it. Now, of course, I'm spending at least some of that science on the intro. And you'll see here that I already had the heat shield, it looks like. I just completely ignored it. But we will grab these decouplers here in our first science, but we definitely want survivability. If for no other reason than we get batteries from it. And another important thing to have in Ferrum Aerospace are these little winglets here. So I think our next goal should either be more science or these probe parts. Because we're not really wanting to risk any Kerbals on this mission or on subsequent missions. Now we have an SRB we can test. We'll take this altitude record because it never expires. And then we have to test this at a fairly narrow deal here. So this is going to be a suborbital flight. Maybe not completely out of the atmosphere, but enough to get us more contracts. Let's just take a look and see what it is that we need. We'll do a new one called the second shot. You know, KSP really is behaving today. It usually does not work out that well. Now, it could be that I have some things shut down, but we have our basic deal here. Stack decoupler. That's flying at Kerbin. They want us to go pretty fast, which I think can be done. In fact, we were going fast enough a while back for it. But I'll just, I'll get ourselves up to altitude here. We'll put a small engine on here, and then we want to decouple this guy as well. Let's get an idea of what our thrust is like with this. If we take engineer, which I'm not going to leave on, I'll take it off shortly before flight. We have a thrust to weight ratio of a lot. Lots of delta V there. I'm going to cut that down to maybe about 600 or so. And we'll bring the thrust to weight ratio down to about 2. This other engine we can gimbal, so that'll be okay. And that should be enough to satisfy everything. So hopefully this is enough to get us up to where we're wanting to go. And we can get up in the atmosphere just fine. This time I think I'm going to try to go over land. So we'll do that real quick. And I'm anticipating burnout fairly soon. Do we have to be going a certain speed for the decoupler? I forgot to check that. Yeah, we're not going nearly fast enough. But we'll go over here and try to get up to altitude. We'll have to try that at some other point. Well, I need to slow down. Or else deadly re-entry ready to get this guy over here. In fact, we may be suborbital by this point. It's definitely worth it to get ourselves a crew report, and then when we hit our apoapsis, which will happen fairly soon, to get out and do our thing. Apoapsis is in space. So I strongly suspect that we will be coming in a little bit too fast for us to do what I want to do. I'm going to try that other contract, I think, on a space probe, because you don't lose reputation from launching a space probe. We'll get out, we'll do our EVA report. Actually, I need to take this data real quick. We'll make a crew report as well. And I'm hoping that I'm not about to kill Jub in doing what I'm doing. I mean, it's a little bit steep for our profile. Probably should have saved some of that. So we'll need to keep, but you know what, we'll take that data. I need to get an EVA report as well. Unfortunately, I'm not entirely sure if Jeb will make it. Because we have a very steep angle here. Just point along our prograde vector. That will actually help us quite a good deal. So 23,600 is the time to pop the chutes. I don't understand what happened there. That may be a contract we end up failing. Let's get ourselves a crew report over the Highlands. I mean, we are slowing down a fair deal at least. Normally you would not want to be going so quickly. But I'm hoping this will slow us down significantly, and once we hit about 500, I'm going to step out and grab an EVA report. I'm not going to bother walking to the, really to the lowlands anymore. We can just try to hit that. We are coming in a little bit faster than I'd like. This is probably not the best deal here. We'll be hitting pretty hard, I reckon. And we'll take ourselves a crew report. Step out. And take the data. And then, why don't we on top of that get an EVA report, take a surface sample, and we'll get a flag as well. We'll say, well, why can't I plant a flag? That's kind of weird. We will say, I don't know, maybe first suborbital flight. How are we doing on funds? We're already pretty good on them. That's really the name of the game in the new career mode, is to slowly but surely fulfill new contracts. Idjub has earned a few ribbons now. He's got the first flag on Kerbin, first Kerbin EVA ribbon, and zero atmosphere. First EVA in space. I mean, this is looking good, although it hasn't really seemed like he would have enjoyed it a little bit too much. I probably should have put some more stuff on it. But we've got money to burn now. We should go through when we do this before we spend our money and see what we have. So we don't have to buy a launch stability enhancer. The decoupler is going to be interesting. We'll have a liquid fuel engine as well that we're going to have to test. But I'm not really going to bother testing it yet. Our last major deal here is to orbit Kerbin. So what I want, I think, are the probe parts that come with the fairings. Those will be nice. And those are, let's see, they are about as expensive, I think, as the deal. I can't really tell from there. They want us to test the LVT 45, which I'm not going to bother doing. I'm going to get more science, though. And I'm going to leave this until we get what we need here. So, let's move on to a unmanned craft. We'll call it Pwoper. This guy has a cost of 300, making him a little bit cheaper than usual. We have survivability now, so we can test these guys here. I mean, really what I want to do is I want to put in this guy up here. We'll move the batteries up here so he looks a little bit like Mickey Mouse. This thing's gonna go in a fairing, incidentally. Fairings, as it turns out, are very important to stuff and whatchamacallit in the thing. I really don't know what I'm getting at the moment. Oh yeah, that's right, I can't afford that sort of science, so what we'll do is we will put this thing in the probe here. We don't even really need that much in the way of stuff. But I think a heat shield is probably going to be prudent. And there's this issue with these guys moving over the heat shield a little bit. I'm trying to find a way that I can get this thing not to poke out. We may just go ahead and do the orbital flight with this. I think it's more than doable at this point. But if we're doing that, I definitely want the fairings installed. I think that'll be enough to keep these guys from catching on fire. We've got plenty of money, so I mean it's not really that bad of a deal. But we'll recover that at some point. And I do want to put this. I really should have found a way to somehow get the science out of it, but let's see. What is the size of that thing? The sky. Is that a heat shield? I don't think it is, I just think it's a regular decoupler. We'll get this guy up here, and you know what, maybe I will possibly try to get this guy in orbit. We need on this module here, though, probably the reaction wheels, because they're, I guess, how expensive is that going to be? Well, I just had this. Doesn't seem to like the reaction wheel much. We'll put whatchamacallit on it though. Oh, I just had this. It doesn't seem to be able to make up its mind whether or not that's valid or not. In fact, what is the mass of this thing? That's the first. It's not attached, so I do need a decoupler with it. If I can, in fact, get it to go. And for some reason, it doesn't seem to want to. We have. Oh, I see what happened there. I think I did have it going correctly. actually. Well, this is thoroughly irritating. I think it has to do with the placement of my parachutes. And you know, in reality, I don't really need a huge parachute. I just need one up here. Let's get this guy sorted out real quick, because that is getting rather annoying. I mean, it's definitely my my plan at this point. There we go. I'll put the heat shield over here, or not the heat shield, but the other thing, the parachutes. As long as they're not poking out from that heat shield, we'll be fine. Okay, so we now have this guy here. I think that's the perfect time to pop the chutes, actually. That's when we decouple that last still. This is going to be kind of like an oversized Sputnik. But it'll have plenty of things going on. 210 days of life support, I guess, even though there really is not much in the way of life support on an unmanned Idyll. Let's see. We basically want a fairing base here. And this will pop off fairly soon. Well, yeah, I need to get that properly set up. I'll leave the fairings to last, because we have a pretty good idea what this thing's going to look like, but we'll achieve orbit with that, and then I'm going to take this guy off. I think this is a reasonable trade-off to make, because we could put a Kerbal into orbit, but I do want to put a probe in orbit at the moment. So, what we'll do here is we'll go down and I'm going to ignore this for the moment because we have several days to pull that off. This has to be tested at a very bizarre speed. Although I'm confident that with this guy here, I mean, we do have that engine that we want to test that's landed, so I'm going to use that. It's a perfect opportunity to do that. If this stage works out well, then I will probably save it, as I believe we have more than enough Delta V to get into orbit. Let's pop that fairing base on here. Make sure that we're set up correctly. I'm also going to throw on I mean, what's the mass on this guy that... I'm thinking, you know, maybe with this, maybe we can get about a ton to orbit. I'm gonna... It's a little over 2 tons, but... I'm just going to throw on some control surfaces, because they cost the same, and being able to control our plane is quite important. Other than that, let's take these guys here, since we're testing them at launch. They might... We'll use them for thrust here, for a little additional thrust, and they don't weigh all that much, so I mean, it's not bad. So hopefully there is... Well, what's up with those fairings, I wonder? Those do not need to come off just yet. Now what would be good is if I could tell where max Q is at, and I think we'll be able to do that. But I need to pull up far somehow and look at that. So let's see, we have Ferrum Aerospace, we have this guy here, orbital and surface velocity will be fine. We'll just get this guy. Oh, you know what I forgot to do? We need to recover this, because I forgot one critical part. Now, fortunately, we get 100% recovery here. Which is rather nice, because 100% recovery is going to be an issue. We do want to keep these guys as sorted as possible. So there we go. Prober Mark 1, or Prober, rather, is now going into space. And what we're going to do now is begin doing some high altitude research. Now again, with it is very important that we have this thing throttled up correctly. Let's see, our flight assistance, we have a wing leveler. Flight data, maybe. I don't know what max Q is in KSP, or for this case, but in Kerbin, what the maximum I suppose dynamic pressure would be. We'll see here in a bit, but we want to keep it under a certain bill. I'm sure that if I really wanted to, I could calculate that. It's probably good for us to begin doing our gravity turn. Our time to apoapsis is already pretty high as it is. max Q somewhere down there for our speed. Whatever it is, we're already going a little bit too fast. Okay, that was... Oh right, I forgot to put reaction wheels on it. Now I bet you are... Our stability is not quite what it needs to be. We'll just bring up our time to apoapsis. We have plenty of fuel though, so I'm just going to get the mystery boot on. And then, as you can see, our apoapsis is slowly rising. Now we don't have to get a Kerbal in orbit, so that'll be okay. We need to tilt down a little bit. Now we're out of the atmosphere. So why was I worrying about max Q? Well, incidentally, max Q is the point where we have the most aerodynamic pressure on the vehicle. And so that's something we want to worry about. Let's see, we're at 70 versus what? 70 versus 80. Whoa. Okay, that's 88. That can stand to come down a bit. '81 versus 82. We're almost there. 81 versus 81. I'll call that success. Oh, because I stupidly did not put reaction wheels on this. We're somehow going to have to get this still going. We got plenty of delta V. In fact, we got more than enough for us to do the maneuver we're trying to do. The question is, can we survive this sort of re-entry? And that is not a trivial question to answer. I don't think we could survive it at this time, or because we're going a little bit on the fast side. We really want to be going in a little bit shallower. I mean, maybe with that heat shield we could, but I'm not entirely sure. Anyway, we'll just begin our orbital insertion. And I've overburned a little bit, but I'm not going to bother, well, maybe I should circularize. I mean, it's not all that big of a deal, and we have enough power for the reaction wheels. But with that having been said, probably need to raise our axis a little bit. And we can do that by doing a radial burn. Whether I'm pointed in the right direction is beyond me. There we go. That's about as circular as we're going to get it this time. We could get more circular, but I'm not gonna bother. So, I mean, we're in orbit now. And now we just want to find such a maneuver that we come in a little bit over a KSC. Which is right about there. Going forward, in fact, is probably not a bad idea. So as long as we deal with the rigors of re-entry correctly. I'm not entirely sure with FAR if this is the correct periapsis height for coming in. In fact, I've never really been all that good at determining that. But let's take a look at our inclination. I mean, we're actually in a fairly good inclination, which, truth be told, surprises me. Adding in those, those tail fins really did help. So, I mean, I'm not gonna really go to the moon this episode, because that does require quite a bit of funding, at least the way I'm imagining it, and we have lots of options. It may be a couple of episodes before we do it the moon or Minmus rather, but we will go ahead and get this guy going just a little bit. That's that's about right. We're a little bit off. Maybe I could, let's see, if I burn up, this is gonna rotate me, I imagine, probably counterclockwise, which is what I want. I mean, we have plenty of delta V to make corrections with, so that's not going to be that big of a deal. Something tells me I'm overdoing this just a little bit, though. I mean, it seems like I was a little bit wasteful on this mission. I was about to quick save, but then I remembered I can't do that. Well, there's no real reason to keep this guy around anymore. That guy is probably... I raised our periapsis a little bit. But let's make sure that we re-enter properly. Because that will be very important. And so the rule on this is more or less that we need to be pointed prograde. in the atmosphere currently. We're going to be fighting the atmosphere a little bit on the way back because I don't believe we're aerodynamically stable. I could be wrong about that, but I mean, the important thing is that we've managed to fit everything into this neat little package that can withstand re-entry. Now, part of the reason why I guess this guy is a little bit more expensive is that or the probe is less expensive. In total, it may be just about as expensive as the pod. Is that the pod comes with life support and a built-in heat shield, which we will now see. Ideally, these temperatures never reach more than a couple hundred degrees, and we will be getting shock heating going on pretty soon. Whether or not this is recommended, what I'm about to do, I'm putting it in physics time warp for the time being, in the hope that our heat shield holds up and that our temperature doesn't go that much higher, because we do, I guess you can't really see our descent rate. And it's probably going to be very important that I not do it this way. I mean, oddly enough, the best thing I could do is put fins on the bottom to maintain stability. We'll just lock this guy in here. I mean, we are deviating very slightly from our prograde vector, and things are beginning to heat up. I don't know if that's due to ambient temperature or if it's due to the shock heating that will soon be imminent. That's something we're gonna have to worry about with space planes too. I mean, I don't believe the space planes have ablative shielding. I think they have a different form of shielding that would make them more suitable for re-entry. But we'll have to make an unmanned test flight rather, because space planes are actually a really attractive idea. Now we're beginning to heat up quite a bit here, but we're still largely remaining about where we want to be. If we look at our map view here, looks like we're going to land in the desert, which will give us about $60 or so worth of return. Now, normally I would go to Minmus first. Minmus is a little bit easier to get to, but as it turns out, they want you to go to the moon. So I'm just not going to bother with that. We're at 28, we're at room temperature right now. And that heat shield seems to be doing its job quite nicely. What about our parachutes? Our parachutes are, they seem to be protected, although it's questionable that they might survive, or that any of this might survive, really. I mean, a large probe would probably not easily survive re-entry, but you can see our heat shield's going to work. We're about to get shock heating, I imagine, as we get closer and closer to max Q. And on account of the fact that our velocity is so high, you know. And so what is a reasonable re-entry for this? Well, oh wow, temperature's actually going down. Wow, it didn't really have much in the way of shock heating at all. I mean, maybe this guy here would have lit up. We've already hit maximum dynamic pressure. Well, if we want this guy to drop, then we probably should make it drop. And air pressure is just sort of pushing us along our retrograde vector. Which I honestly think is really quite nifty. Pressure's going up again, but not nearly like it should be. And I think we're done with this heat shield for now. I'm going to jettison it in the hopes that we might fall a little... Well, we wouldn't really fall that much faster, would we? And that was not really what I meant to do. For some reason, that heat shield did not go off. That was supposed to... I mean, it's okay, we'll recover it. Well, I guess it's not really that bad of a deal. Heat shields are supposed to decouple, though. Oh, pardon me. So I think we've demonstrated that it's possible for us to get this guy going. And really what I want now is interstage. Because we could pack in some nifty things here. Can I not force this thing to decouple? Or really, should I at this point? I mean, I'm thinking the answer to that has to be no. And look at that, we're moving down at a very reasonable 4.3 meters per second. So we now have a basic idea of what a re-entry craft should look like. And as we begin working more with this, it really should be possible for us to have an idea of what the optimal probe design will be. So we're just going to recover that vessel and hope the game doesn't crash. I've got 112 science from that, which is bloody awesome. A lot of that probably came from getting into orbit, because we only got 27 science from that. Although we did, we did save up a bit. But I mean, we recovered a fair amount of our finds, which is nice. And you know what we'll do? We will rescue this guy. That has to be in flight. This guy has apparently managed to get into space, even though nobody's been in orbit yet, except I guess he'll be the first. We'll get tons of money from it. And we have Explore the Moon as our next goal now. Several objectives need to be met for this, so I'm probably going to begin doing probes with this. And I really want to do RCS with it. But this could be done with the probe, it seems. So I'm just going to do that. Our advance is about 20 grand, which is frankly quite awesome. And these guys we'll do somewhere else, but I just want to really get this new science module going. Although it's questionable, do we want science or RCS? Well, if we're sending a probe to the moon, then I think we can get our RCS fairly easily. And at some point, I don't know when, we'll need to start entertaining this idea of getting vernier thrusters. Or I guess vernier. I mean, that would be good, or this guy would be good too. But let's just do this last one. Well, you know what? Maybe I should check on the recording time. Yeah, I think it's probably going to be time for me to end the video. So I'm just going to cut it off here. Next time, what we'll do is we will basically get this recovery rocket built, and we will rescue whoever this dude is, and he'll technically be the first guy in space, which means he will, or maybe not in space, but in orbit. Topmore is his name. But I'll consider that a success, and then we'll see you next time. Until then, this has been Thy Lord Root, and I will see you later.